this was all circulating around the base, that a giant had been killed, but no one was supposed to talk about it.
I saw 3 long, bony fingers reach up underneath the door, curl up to grab it, and then disappeared.
When he came over to me, dude, he slithered over to me.
And this giant comes out of the cave, and they're all frozen. And he starts running and firing at this giant. Well, the giant moves. He's got a spear in one hand, and he's running really fast and spears Dan and holds him up like this. Somebody yells, shoot him in the face, shoot him in the face. They basically decapitate him.
Got closer. When he got about 15 yards away from me, I raised that 12 gauge and I blowed his head off.
I feel something pulling at my leg, and I look over and there are 2 small gray entities pulling at me. And they're literally, I'm getting pulled off the bed.
I reached my hand into this bush and I touched air. Couldn't breathe and I couldn't move because I know I'm seeing a monster.
Yep. Welcome to the show, everybody. You're listening to The Confessionals. I am your host, Tony Merkel. Thank you for being here. If you've had an encounter or a story you'd like to share with me on the show, go ahead and shoot me an email. My email address is theconfessionals@theconfessionalspodcast.com. That's theconfessionals@theconfessionalspodcast.com. Or go to the website, theconfessionalspodcast.com, hit the contact section, and you can reach me that way as well. Either way works for me, just get a hold of me. And if you want more shows every week, on Thursdays, we release a bonus show to members only on the website. So if you want to hear more of the Confessionals on a weekly basis, just go to theconfessionalspodcast.com, hit the join button, and become a member today. Now, today we got a mixed bag show for you. We got a couple guests coming on the show, but before we get into that, I just want to let everybody know, thank you very much for showing interest to the tour that we're doing in a couple months in June, the Unexplained Occurrences Tour. We had a awesome time talking about it and letting you guys know about it, and I wasn't sure if people would actually be interested in such things, but I'm happy to tell you guys that once we released that information last Tuesday, the tour sold out in less than 24 hours with a lot of people on a waiting list. So if you want to be involved in these future tours going forward, continue to call Creed at The Educated Wanderer. The phone number again is 973-513-9001, or you can email at traveler@educatedwanderer.com. Go ahead and continue to reach out because he'll put you on a waiting list. So when we open up another tour, he'll give you a call and see if you're still interested. Now, this week we have Austin and Nick coming on the show. We're going to start off with Austin, who has a lot of different types of experiences, but the one that really got my ear was the one where we start out talking about how he saw a deer on its hind legs. And that's why he reached out, because we've done a show before where we talk about a guy being chased down by 2 deer running on their hind legs. And Austin had a very similar experience. And then we bring on Nick to talk about his paranormal experiences. And it's funny because Nick thought that he would do paranormal investigation to show that it's a bunch of BS. And then he was smacked in the face because he found out it wasn't a bunch of BS. So let's get to Austin and Nick right now. All right, today we got Austin on the show. Austin, how you doing, man?
Good, Tony. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. So, listen, I appreciate you rescheduling with me and stuff. We had some miscommunications yesterday, but I'm really glad that we're getting this thing done. You had some experiences, and now you are Native American, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so
yes, I am.
And did you grow up on a reservation? Is that kind of your background?
I did not. I grew up right on the outskirts of Osage County. So there's a reservation in Osage County, but I didn't live on it.
I got you. Okay. So we're going to be talking today about some different things. And I want to start off, though, today with this experience you had where you saw basically a deer on its hind legs. Now, I don't know if you remember this or if you ever listened to the episode where we did talk to a guy, I believe it was in Oregon, where he too saw two deer running on hind legs after their car. Did you ever hear that episode?
That is actually what made me submit this story to the show.
Okay,
that
cool.
episode.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that episode was called, it was 136, and it was called Trespassers Will Be Shot, Last Chance. I thought it was a kind of interesting episode. If you want, though, we're going to play the trailer right now for that episode so people can kind of jog their memories as to what we're talking about, okay?
As we're driving down the long road, getting to this particular place, I just started getting just the most sickest feeling in my stomach. You know, like don't do this. This is just bad stuff. Just don't do it. You know, fourth time's a charm. Something's gonna happen. And I look at these dudes and I was like, hey man, let's just go back. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And then, unbeknownst to me, they were both having this bad feeling in their mind too, and so, okay, we turned around. We pulling around at this little turnout place prior to getting to this yellow gate. The gate was locked this time. It had been closed, and I'm like, okay, good. So my headlights are on the gate, and as I turn around to head back to, down the road we came from, something caught my eye, and as I was accelerating, I looked out my, driver's side window right there, and to me, and this is, I only looked at it for like a brief glance. It looked to me like there were two deer standing on their hind legs, pacing the car as we were driving away. And I just haul ass out of there. That was the last time I visited the gravel quarry.
So that was the trailer, and hopefully that jogs people's memories. If people want to see some artist renditions of those deers, they can go to the confessionalspodcast.com, and just in the search bar right on the homepage, you can just type in 136, and it'll take you right. It'll pull up the episode, Trespassers Will Be Shot, Last Chance, and you'll be able to see an artist rendition of the two deer running on the hind legs. That was done by one of our artists, Nate, and he did a phenomenal job on that. So Austin, after you hear that trailer, or the episode, you contact me and you want to share your experience of seeing something similar. So you're in Oklahoma. What happened, man?
So late one night, it was probably about 11:30 to midnight. I'm driving home and I'm taking this back road into the town I live in, and it's a secluded little wooded area. And, to see deer out there, it's not uncommon. So you always keep a lookout. You never want to hit one. So as I look off to my right, I see a deer off in the little field. Well, out of nowhere, it starts to gallop towards the road. So I start to slow down. Well, as it starts to gallop towards the road, it gets up on its hind legs and is running towards the road. At that point, I lose it. There is no slowing down anymore. I floor it. I'm going probably about 65 miles an hour on this country road, and that deer is keeping up along the side of my truck. I mean, it was staying right then and there. But as soon as I started to come into a town where there's, street lights and stuff like that, it just kind of faded off into the little wooded area off on my right. But it stayed right there next to my truck the entire time.
Wow.
I saw it.
That's interesting because Alan described a very similar experience in that episode of 136 where these things were keeping up with the car as they were driving away. Did you ever get a feeling that this was a cryptid type situation, an anomaly with deer, or maybe a paranormal situation?
So the way I looked at it and always kind of I looked into it a little bit. It almost fit the description of a Wendigo. The deer head and everything else it had, and just the way they move and how fast they are. I truly believe it might have been a Wendigo, but I never figured out for sure what it was.
That's a good point. That's a really good point about it being a possible Wendigo, because I don't know tons about Wendigo. I'm not like your expert or anything, but I do know that when I used to really kind of look hard on the cryptid stuff, I would look into the Wendigo, and when you look at the pictures online, a lot of times they're depicted with, the antlers, like very deer-like.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, and they are a Native American belief. And I happen to be in Native territory out here in Oklahoma. So it was just something that I was like, oh, it's a possibility.
It's definitely a possibility. I almost wish I would have thought about that for episode 136, because I don't think that came up on that episode. But yeah, I don't know, man. If I saw something like that, I'd be pretty freaked out myself. Not like, say it was just a deer, right? And I saw a deer stand on its hind legs and then run after a car, keeping up with it, kind of thing. To me, that's like nightmare worthy. Did you ever have any kind of like side effects from this experience where it was like bad dreams or anything?
Yeah, there's always. I've had one bad dream about it, and I've relived that situation. But other than that, it hasn't truly. Look, I've had a lot of weird things go on, so that's actually towards the minor end of it. So if that's minor, then I'm looking forward to this conversation, because to me, that's kind of crazy. But yeah, man. So you have this experience in like 2015-ish? 2015-ish, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And how old were you when that happened?
I was 22.
Okay. And you weren't partying and drunk, were you? No, just kidding.
No, I was actually coming home from a late night shift at work.
I got you. So you have this experience in 2015, but it's not the only experience you had that was odd. Even though this was, to me, a very, crazy experience, you also had other experiences as well, where you actually, I think you and your cousin were hunting, right? And you guys saw something pretty wild in the woods.
Yeah, this is back in 2013. We're out doing a little raccoon hunting in Osage County, out in the woods there. And had been walking, and we'd been letting our dogs go. And we were sitting there, we were just kind of following the dogs and letting them do their thing and tree a raccoon every now and then. Well, we come off into a little clearing, and off on the edge, there's a little tree line there. I look up and I see two red glowing eyes, and you can kind of see the outline of what would be a body, but it was darker than the dark outside in the middle of the night. And I pointed it out to my cousin. He sat there and he saw it too, and he kind of freaked out, and he took off running straight to the truck. He was gone. He left me. And so I'd take off running back to the truck, and we get in the truck, and you look behind us, and the eyes have now moved, and we can see them in the back glass of the truck. They're still right there at the edge of the truck now. So he takes off, and the eyes, we could see them. They kept just following the truck. And we had actually come across some private Native burial grounds out there. And so I'm starting to believe that that's definitely a paranormal experience we had happened, because as soon as we hit the main road back heading into town, we hit Highway 20 there, they were gone. The eyes disappeared. They quit following us. But I think we were on the wrong piece of property as trespassers, and it wanted us off of its property for sure.
Wow. So when I first read this in the email, I was thinking that, it sounds really similar to people's experiences when they run into Bigfoot in the woods, where it's like they saw two glowing red eyes, they saw an outline of a figure, and it was paralleling them, or it was kind of escorting them out of the woods. But you're thinking this is probably more than likely something more on the paranormal end.
I had never put two and two if it was a Bigfoot, just because of speed we were moving down some of these trails to get back to the road, I don't know how fast a Bigfoot possibly could move. I was just always assuming it was a paranormal experience.
Yeah. So from what I hear, and granted, I just hear because I've never seen a Bigfoot and operate or anything like that, but they can move very fast and also very swiftly, very smoothly, almost visually looks like it's effortless. I've heard people talk about how they've seen a Bigfoot, cross a road in one, step, not even a leap or a run, but just like a step. That's how big they are. I've heard people talk about how when they're running, it's like it's almost like, at least to me, when I visually think about it in my head, it reminds me of like the Hulk running through the desert in that one Hulk movie where I think he was actually transforming back into the Doctor, and but like as he was running, he was like taking leaps and he was like just flying through the air kind of thing. Granted, Bigfoot doesn't fly like that, but people have talked about when they see it running that it can cover 20 to 30 feet in basically one leap. So if it can move that fast, I imagine that it could keep up with the vehicle. The only thing is, as big as these things are, I would think that you would have heard it if it was running after you.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, because, I've also heard there have been several people around where I'm from who have seen Bigfoot, and they describe a smell and we never smelled anything like that or, heard any Bigfoot cries or howls or anything like that. And I always just assume from previous experiences I've had that I've always thought I've been more susceptible to the paranormal. So I just always connected it with the paranormal type thing.
Yeah. And it very well could have been, man. It really could have been. And that's the thing. I mean, when you don't see anything other than what you saw, there's a lot of open-ended questions that's just like, well, I don't know, but, yeah. To me, if I'm out there and I saw what you guys saw, again, that would have scared the crap out of me. And especially the fact that it was keeping up with the vehicle. I mean, did you ever feel like your life was almost in danger or anything? Or did you just think this is some kind of crazy experience that you can't wait to tell somebody about?
I never felt endangered myself. My cousin did. He says he literally did not think we were going to make it out. Me, I never thought we were in any danger. I just thought it wanted us out of its area, out of its territory, go on and leave.
And that's something that I've also heard people have multiple different reactions to situations that they go through together. I mean, sometimes people feel that, their lives are in danger. Some people are just scared. And I think that has a lot to do with the person's personality. If somebody is very skittish and naturally fearful of certain things that they don't understand, in those kind of situations, naturally they'd be scared. But I think there are people out there that just don't really feel that kind of fear when they go through these experiences, and then they wind up becoming Bigfoot researchers and hunting these things down. So,
yeah, no, and it's definitely something I've always been fascinated by Bigfoot, and I've always watched those people who have the TV shows and they're like, oh, we're going to find Bigfoot today. I just never thought of it as a Bigfoot experience.
Yeah. And you know what? And that's fine because it very well may not have been a Bigfoot experience. I mean, you went through it and stuff. It's just when I was reading the email, that's what it seemed like to me. But before we started recording here, you told me you also had a UFO experience. Is that in the same area as these other experiences?
So it is not. It's actually, I'm leaving Cavalcade, which is a big rodeo here in Oklahoma. I came home and it's probably 2 a.m. and both of my cousins were actually, they live next door. And they were sitting outside smoking a cigarette, just talking. And when I pull up, I go over there and just hang out with them for a second. Well, my cousin, who was probably 13 at the time, he starts looking up at the sky, and he's just sitting there gazing. So we all look up, and about maybe 100 yards away from the house, there's this ball of light, and it's orange, just hovering. And it's just hovering above the house down the road here. And it just, as we sat there and we watched it, maybe for a good 4 or 5 minutes, it started to hover to the west, which was our direction. And it got maybe 50 yards away from where we were, and it just disappeared, just gone.
How high was this from where you were?
Honestly, I'd say it was maybe 75 foot in the air.
Really? So you had a good look at this thing?
Oh yeah, we sat here, and it was maybe the tallest tree we have over here is about 50 foot, and it was maybe only 20, 30 foot above it at most. And it was something that we had never, really seen. So it was like my cousin, it just happened to catch his eye, and we just sat here and watched it. But the weird thing is, so it was right when I had got my first smartphone. So I tried to take a video, and you couldn't see it on the video. It was crazy.
Wow, that is crazy. I mean, if it was that close and you couldn't catch it on the video, what kind of smartphone was this? Was this like, a Generation 1 iPhone or what?
It was a Galaxy S3.
Oh, man.
It wasn't a first generation smartphone, but it was still, this was 6 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, 6 years ago, the technology should have been able to pick something up. I'm assuming that you are gathering that there was some kind of interference then.
Oh, yeah. I believe so. I believe it was cloaking itself or some sort of radio wave that just wouldn't allow it to be picked up.
What do you gather it was? I mean, do you get the feeling that it was, extraterrestrial, interdimensional, governmental? What do you think?
So I believe it was extraterrestrial. I mean, I'd never thought interdimensional truly. It was never something crossed my mind actually until just now. That could actually be a possibility, because I do believe in alternate dimensions. So it could have been. It was a crazy thing that we just happened to see.
Yeah, I mean, believing in alternate dimensions, I mean, it's kind of hard not to these days because of, when you take the background of people's history when it comes to their faiths and things like that, but then you also pair it with mainstream science talking about the fact that they actually dabble in parallel universes. I mean, it's like a lot of people would have a hard time saying that they don't believe in it once they're informed of all the different groups of organizations and people who say, yes, these things do exist, and then it opens up a whole new, thought process when it comes to these things. I mean, are they traveling through dimensions to get here? Are they interdimensional? Are they from this dimension using other dimensions to get to other locations, extremely fast, or giving them the ability to travel long distances? It's just the ideas and the possibilities are endless when you start thinking about it and you start accepting the fact that there are parallel universes, there are other dimensions that things exist in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and see, here's the crazy thing about what we saw. So I have a friend who is very he researches UFOs and aliens and stuff like that, and he's very big into it. And I told him about it, and he lives on the other side of town. I live in a real small town, so when I say the other side, it's literally a half a mile away, and you're at the other side of town. So, but he actually seen something similar the same night. He was all excited because he saw it, and when I told him about it, it just kind of confirmed that he wasn't the only one.
What did he see, though? Was it identical or just something similar?
He said he saw an orange floating light in the sky, and that's very similar to what we had seen.
Yeah, I mean, that could have been perspective, too. I mean, it very well could have been the same thing, but maybe he saw it from a greater distance and it looked more orange than red or something. Because you said yours was red, right?
It was a reddish orange. It was red, but it had an orangish tint to it, kind of that off color.
Interesting. Yeah. It's nice to have people confirm your experiences, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It definitely made me realize we weren't crazy. I mean, because it was just one of those things like, man, maybe woke up the next day. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe I just, came home from the rodeo a little too late and, just had some weird dreams that night. But he verified it, and so did both of my cousins that saw it with me. So
yeah. Now,
it made me realize that I wasn't truly insane. So
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, do you wish that you would have had somebody experience the deer as well with you? Because I mean, that's something I'd be like, man, I wish somebody would have saw that.
man, I wish I would have. I mean, it was just one of those things. That one was truly a weird. And when I've told people, they truly do not believe me. Like, I have people who I've told and they're just like, oh man, you're crazy. Well, maybe I am, but this is what I saw.
Right. Yeah, well, listen, man, that is what you saw. And we've had other people on the show say that they saw very similar things. And so I don't think you're crazy. I think that this world is crazy. I think that the the things that happen in this world are far more crazy than anybody wants to give it credit for. And I think that has a lot to do with, you know, why we experience the things that we experience. And I think people are starting to slowly wake up to the fact that this world is bananas, and things happen in this world that are commonly unexplainable. And people are starting to find ways to explain it, though, through acceptance. I mean, once you accept these things happen, you can start thinking about how it's possible that it happens, you know?
I mean, agreed. Definitely. I mean, there's too much what people claim as weird things going on in the world for some of it to not be true. Everyone has different experiences. Everyone sees different things, and we label them as, you know, crazies or conspiracy theorists. But if enough people are starting to see these weird things, at what point are we just going to accept it?
Right. I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, I think, and again, I think that people are starting to accept it. I'm starting to see a lot more people, just people that 5 years ago would have just told me that, you know, I'm crazy Tony that looks into crazy things. And now they're saying, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I'll have people, you know, especially on the current events / conspiracy realm of things that are happening in this world right now, people are like, whoa, I can't believe that's actually happening. And they message me, did you hear about this? And I'm like, yeah, bro, like I've been on that, you know? So I think I hate to use this term. I really hate to use this term just because of the connotation that's with it. But I think that there's a great awakening happening. And I think people are starting to wake up on a huge level. And I think it's going to be good for, you know, humanity.
Oh, I completely agree, because people are starting to come around to see that the elites in the world are truly not good people like they claim to be. And people are going to start waking up and realizing this world has gone bananas.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. Listen, Austin, man, I appreciate you coming on and sharing these experiences. Very interesting. Dude, I'm telling you, like I said in the beginning, I love that deer experience. I mean, and I think I remember when I first got it from the other guy, Alan, he told me that experience, and I was like, holy crap, I never heard anything like that. And then when you contacted me with that experience, I was thinking, man, got to have this guy on the show. And I'm glad you came on and shared, man.
I appreciate it, Tony. Thanks for having me on.
All right, this episode's brought to you by Simply Safe. Simply Safe has been coming to the Confessionals for almost a year now, and they are absolutely stunned at the performance that their advertising has been on this show. You guys absolutely care about your home security. And let me tell you a quick story here about my home security and why I got Simply Safe to begin with years ago. When we first bought this house, our living room had 3 points of entry on it. And there was the garage door entry where you could come in from the garage. Then there was the man door where you could come in from just being outside. And then we had the door that went out onto our patio on the back of the house. And so one room had 3 points of entry. And I could tell it made my wife a little nervous with that whole thing. But that wasn't the thing that got me. The thing that got me was we had a man door on our basement. And this is the first house I ever bought. And I was like, I don't like the fact that there's a door to my basement. Well, apparently you have to have doors on your basement, but I just didn't like the fact that there was a basement door down there that anybody could maybe bust into, that I couldn't hear them come in, and all of a sudden they're walking up my stairs. It made me really nervous, and now I don't really have to worry about it because I have the studio in the basement and I'm pretty much living in here. So if anybody tries coming in, I'm going to hear it and click, click, you know what I'm saying? But the fact is, the basement door made me really nervous. And so that's the thing that pushed me over the edge to get Simply Safe. And it was easy. You go to the website, which I recommend you go to simplysafe.com/confessionals, but you just go there and within about 2 minutes, you can customize an entire system for your house that arrives in 7 days, and it only takes 30 minutes to set up. And like I've said before, it took me like close to an hour, but again, I'm slow. But if you're just a normal person with a normal brain, it'll probably take you about 30 minutes to set up. And you can go ahead right now, go to simplysafe.com/confessionals today to customize your system and get a free security camera. You also get a 60-day risk-free trial, so there's nothing to lose. Just go to simplysafe.com/confessionals and get the process going to secure your home and make your family feel like they're safe even when you're not home. All right, today we got Nick on the show. Nick, how you doing, man?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing good, man, doing good. So I know you emailed a little while back, and I guess, are you a ghost hunter? Is that what you're doing? Like you're doing paranormal research kind of thing?
It was more of, we were living in Reno, Nevada at the time, and Ghost Adventures used to go up to Virginia City, and we were pretty much a stone's throw away from Virginia City. So we're like, we're going to go to the Washeo Club and see if these guys are actually who they say they are, or they just make stuff up for the views and have it show now. Well, we found out it's pretty real.
Yeah, I'd say so. So what was this called again? The Washington Club? Is that what you said?
Oh, Washeo Club. It's back in when Virginia City was a mining town. It was the Millionaires Club, so it was a very prestigious club for people to like join. I'm sure I'm forgetting some details about it, but
that's all right.
It's kind of like, well, nowadays it's just like a bar. You can go see some of the stuff that they've had. They have like where the Ghost Adventures did all their stuff, and then they do ghost tours up in the like second and third levels of it. They also, you could rent out like the overnight, so you can do like your own overnight stay too.
Okay. So you went to this location because you just kind of almost like you wanted to prove that it wasn't real. It sounds like you were like, I don't know if these guys are legit or they're just trying to be entertainers.
Yeah.
So there was doubt in your mind, but I guess you left there not having much doubt in your mind. So why don't you just walk us into the idea of going to this location? Now, you went there with, did you say it was your wife, fiance, girlfriend? What was it?
Well, I've been there a total of 3 different times with kind of stuff that's happened.
Okay.
The third time is what I messaged or emailed you about, which was the last time that we went.
Did things happen the first 2 times?
Yeah, but it's weird. It's like I don't know if it actually was something or if it was my mind wanting me to think it was stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, there's always like the self-doubt, like, did that really happen, or am I just making something out of it? Why don't you just do this then? I know you emailed me about the third time, but the first time you go there, who are you with, and what did you feel happened there? I mean, was it just feelings, or was there something more tangible, like you saw something, you heard something?
So the first time I went with my wife, my brother, and his fiance, and my dad went, and he was holding my daughter, and he told me from the get-go that he's putting off a vibe of like, if there's anyone here, they're not going to mess with her. So I was like, all right, that's fine. Maybe they'll gravitate towards us so we can actually catch something. And so we're going through the room that Ghost Adventures caught the full body apparition that got them famous, is what the tour guide was telling us. And I went in there perfectly fine, no allergies, nothing. And then all of a sudden my nose started running, and it just kept running. And I told my brother about it. And he looked over and he said, my nose looked so red and raw that I've been like fighting the flu for a week. But as soon as we left that room, it stopped. So I was like, okay, so I don't know, maybe it's just dust. It's an old building. That's what I was chalking up to. But later on in there was a quick little, I guess, backstory is when I was in the Marine Corps, I partially ruptured my Achilles in one of the schools I was in. And so the area is sensitive, whether it's cold weather, just normal, I guess, injuries where they aren't completely healed, so they kind of bug you. And we got into this room where they said a guy had a pet monkey and it got into some dynamite and then blew up the room. It's one of those only in the Wild West would this stuff kind of happen. But it felt like a sharp pain in my Achilles. And I know something's up when my Achilles starts hurting, and I was like, okay, that's weird. So I was like moving it around, trying to stop the pain, and then it got super, super tight, like I hadn't stretched it in a while. And I was like, okay, I need to, it's like, I can't tell the tour guide to speed up the tour, but I really need him to speed up the tour so I can get out of this room. And it was almost instantaneous. As soon as I left that room, the pain stopped and my ankle loosened up.
So why is that though? I mean, why is it that you feel sharp pain in your Achilles and that's when you know something's going on? I mean, what made you connect those dots? I mean, was it something that happened before that you're like, every time there's a paranormal experience, my freaking Achilles acts up?
I feel like it's more of like a weak point, because there was before we actually went to the Washeo Club, I had to do some college course for the Nevada Constitution, and we went to, it was a building that's an art building now, but it used to be a hospital. And then there was one floor where my neck hurt, and then the very top floor had like the way it was room, so they didn't renovate it. It's exactly how it was back in the day. And when I looked inside that room, my Achilles started hurting then.
Okay, so you have a history with it.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, so the Washeo Club is as active as people say it is, kind of thing. But when it comes to that first visit, the Achilles was the last of it. Nothing really happened after that.
So you have that first experience there and you go back for a second time because understandably, I mean, other than your experience with the Achilles, there wasn't a whole lot that happened. The second time you go back, who are you with and did anything happen then?
The second time I was with my wife, brother-in-law, and my buddy from the Marines, who is my daughter's godfather. And this time the little one didn't go in with us. So we were just doing the tour. And we got to this little room. The tour guide was telling us that this lady was taking a selfie in it, and then there was a female face behind her shoulder when it's like physically not possible because she was standing right against the wall. But me and my brother-in-law were in this corner, and his left arm got icy cold. My right arm got icy cold. We had the goosebumps and everything. And then we found out like it was supposedly a female escort that haunted that room. Because after me and him said we felt cold on her arm, my wife went over there and she didn't feel anything. So we're like, maybe it's that escort trying to do something to me and my brother-in-law because we're guys. And when my wife walked over there and went away, kind of thing.
Okay, so with that idea, do you think if it was an escort and all that stuff, do you think it was trying to do something to you as in harm you because it was maybe abused by men before, or do you think it was trying to do something to you as in do something to you? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know what you mean, but it's like I honestly don't know because it just like stayed on my arm.
Okay.
because it was like my right arm had goosebumps, but you looked at my left arm and it was completely fine. It was weird, and it was the same thing on my brother-in-law. His left arm was goosebumps, but his right arm was completely fine.
That's interesting. It's almost like as if like it's a spirit of welcoming, like, welcome, boys. Let me show you your room.
Yeah. I guess if you look at it that way, it could have been, yeah.
I mean, I'm just spitballing here. I mean, that's what I do.
Yeah.
So
It makes sense.
Okay. So there's that experience, and these are two experiences that you shared now that you didn't email about, but you did email us about the third time you went there, and it kind of gives a little bit more context now as to, you know, the third experience, because one thing that I wasn't sure as to was, you know, why was your child there? Like, it seemed like your daughter was there. You brought your daughter with you, but it seems like this was more of like a family event, and dad was there the first time holding the baby and kind of being on guard. So the third time you're there and you have some physical experiences that you wanted to share with us.
Yeah. So the second and third time both took place on 4th of July. That's how I'll always remember it, because it was on the 4th. But the third time we didn't do the tour. So behind the little museum area they have is the crypt. And it could be triple digits outside, but it'll stay really cold, because during the winter when all the miners would die, whether it was accident or some foul play, they put them in the crypt because the ground was too hard to dig a grave. So right there in my mind, I should have put 2 and 2 together. Don't bring the little one inside the crypt, because, the little ones can see things that we can't.
Yeah.
Or that's what people have been theorizing. So we're in there, and my brother-in-law and my daughter's godfather are sitting towards the back of the crypt. And I have the little one on my shoulders, and I have a little FLIR attachment for my iPhone. So I'm using that on my brother-in-law and my buddy. And you can turn the lights off so you can see how dark it really is in there. And they kept telling me that my daughter is pointing up, and above us is just the second level normal floor, wooden floor. So you can hear walking if there's a tour group up there. So she kept pointing up, and I was like, okay, that's weird. Nothing really happens, and then we turned off the light one more time because some random dude came in and was showing us an EVP that he caught in there, and it was pretty interesting. So we turned off the light, and then it was almost like a sign. My daughter was looking up. My brother-in-law got a feeling to look up, and for some reason something told me to look up, and we all looked up. And there was a gap in between the stone wall and the wooden floor. And you could see a shadow pacing back and forth. And I was like, okay, that's weird. Walked out to where the tours, where you could sign up for the tours. And I was like, hey, is there a tour up there right now? And the tour guide was like, it can't be because I'm right here. I was like, oh, okay, there you are. So we see someone walking upstairs. So he came back with me and my daughter to the crypt to disprove or make sure it wasn't anything paranormal, because there's a certain area in the crypt that sees the reflection off of windows from cars, and it plays on the back wall. But we showed him, he was like, yeah, no, that's definitely not cars. So that is something paranormal. And I was like, okay, that's weird. So I wanted to get my daughter out of there. So I started walking out into the museum. And then I'm out of the crypt back in the museum, and my brother-in-law and my buddy come out. And they're like, we're not going back in there. We just saw a shadow figure up on the second level peering down at us. Because it's like really hard to describe because it's got the crypt, the second level floor, and then there's like a little bit below it, and there's like a staircase that you can look down from that second level into the crypt. So where this shadow figure was looking from, you can't reach it during the tour. It's off limits. And we already knew that there wasn't a tour there, so we're like, okay, that's weird. So I went back there to just take a peek to see if they were just like, you know, pulling my leg since I walked out and they couldn't see it. And as soon as I get in, I look up to where they say, and I just see like the side silhouette or half a silhouette of the head dart back behind cover. And I was like, okay, I'm done. That's where I'm calling it quits. So we rejoined my folks outside. Rest of the 4th was uneventful, and it wasn't until about a week later when what I emailed you about really started happening. So my daughter, like, we had a Jack and Jill room, so my daughter was in the room adjacent to us, sleeping in her crib. And it would always be around 2, 3 in the morning. She'd just wake up screaming. And it was almost like she had a nightmare. And she did this for 2, 3 days. And I was like, okay, that's weird. And then I was listening, oddly enough, to one of your podcasts talking about saying Jesus Christ and all these other little religious tidbits to make a spirit either calm down or go away. And I was like, well, I really hope she doesn't have a hitchhiker, but maybe it's something I need to try. So later that night, I lay her down, she's asleep, and I'm standing over her crib, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to try it. Worst thing that happens is she wakes up with a nightmare. So I signed the crossover, and I was like, whatever is attached to my daughter needs to go back to where you came from. You do not belong here, and you cannot stay here. You're not welcome. In the name of Jesus Christ, leave. And then as soon as I signed the cross back over, I had a gust of icy cold wind shoot through me to where like my entire body was covered in goosebumps. And I know it wasn't the AC, just because it was like cold. It wasn't like, yeah, it's a nice 60, 68 degrees in the house. Cool. It was, this is cold. And I don't like it cold.
Yeah. So, I mean, this was something that like was apparently out of the norm for the room.
Yeah.
And so you have this experience where it seems like you may have, you know, for lack of better terms, cleansed your daughter. Did that end her, you know, experiences?
It did for that night, and then the next night I didn't want to take any chances, so I have holy water from the Vatican when I went there once.
Oh, damn.
So I took a little bit on my thumb and just put a cross on her forehead, just to like bless her, I guess, for a lack of better terms. And ever since then, she's had like night terrors, but nothing that compares to what she went through those like 3-4 days after that week.
Yeah, and that's good. I mean, I'm glad that, you know, it kind of eased up for her. How old was she again?
She was a year and a half at that point.
Okay, yeah, that's really young. That's really young. But that's right around the age where they do start dreaming, and you start, you know, seeing them crying in their sleep. And when you wake up and you see them crying in their sleep, it's not them. It's, you know, the differences in the cries. It's like, that's not a I'm hungry cry. That's a I'm scared to death cry. And yeah, that's not what you want for your kids, especially at that age. So you called it a hitchhiker, meaning I'm assuming it came with you guys from there. Do you think that is something that is like a warning almost to you that you're not going to bring her again next time? Or do you think it was like a one and done kind of thing where that's probably not going to happen again?
Well, hopefully it's a one and done thing since, we moved from Nevada to Tennessee, but it was kind of like, hey, don't mess around thinking that you are like impervious kind of thing. So like, don't bring vulnerable people if you come looking for us kind of thing. That's how I took it.
And that's a good way to take it. I think, I think sometimes people go into these things and they don't really quite grasp sometimes the depth of what they might be dealing with. You go into a place and you're like, oh, I wouldn't mind, catching a ghost of an old hooker sometime,
Yeah.
But, sometimes you knock on that door and, the hooker doesn't answer, but a demon does, or the devil himself. And it's just like,
it's like, all right, let's close that door.
Yeah. I mean, can you, it's like one of those things where can I close that door in enough time where it's not going to affect me or my family? But yeah, man, listen, I think it was an interesting experience. And, now that you're in Tennessee and stuff, are you looking to get into Bigfoot research instead of paranormal?
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to expand it. I still want to do paranormal, find stuff out in Tennessee, but I definitely want to get into Bigfoot. Because what's funny is Sasquatch Chronicles is what got me onto your show. But I was watching Mountain Monsters, the Scooby-Doo for adults, as Wes likes to say it. I was watching Mountain Monsters when I found Sasquatch Chronicles, and then I found you. So it was like this weird, like, connect the dots kind of thing. And I was like, oh. So it's like, yeah, I've always wanted to try to find Bigfoot, at least for my own.
I can tell you that Tennessee definitely has sightings. It's obviously a great habitat for such thing. And sounds like people are just stomping around upstairs. That's great, guys. Thanks. I have the recording light on and they know I'm recording. But no, I think that, Tennessee is a great area for that. But also there's a lot of other mysterious things out of Tennessee. I'm talking about the uncovering of giant skeletons and extraterrestrial interactions people have had in Tennessee, and things that haven't been put on the record, but just people I've talked to throughout the years that didn't want to come on the show, but they share with me their experiences. And Tennessee is a very mysterious place, but a very intriguing place if you're into that kind of thing. So I think you're in the middle of a playground, and I think you're about to have some fun.
I hope so.
Well, that's the show, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy it, please go ahead and share this show with your friends. I don't care where or how you share the show, but when you share the show, it helps get the show in front of other people and helps us grow. And that's the best thing you can do to help the show grow, is to share it with your friends. And until next week, friends, stay safe, take care, and remember, the truth will set you free. But first, it will piss you off. Bye.
Just feeling probably like you. I'm just drifting, probably right beside you. All the abyss, control from afar. What did we miss? Now we're left with the scars. We love the lows but hate the highs. Is the other side of the sun. With all this glow, it's hard to hide. It's bright. We love the lows but hate the highs. Is the other side of the sun. With all this dark, it's hard to find. It's bright. Everybody wanna preach a happy median. I see they dopamine fix come from media. Now your spirit getting booked on Expedia. Soul searching like Long Island Medium. I should've been taught. Sleepwalk through life, but being woke is an insult. They should have been caught. They want us flooded in fear by drowning us on the asphalt. We love the lows but hate the highs. Is the other side of the sun. With all this glow, it's hard to hide. It's bright. We love the lows but hate the highs. Is the other side of the sun. With all this dark, it's hard to find. It's bright. Masking from elites, got us attaching what is free. Now we're rationing our needs for our soul. Yeah. We're not fasting from belief. The smell of Sharpies right the streets, looting liabilities like it's gold. Atomic number 79, Gucci, Prada, Jordan high. Sniff that line, it's on the house till you're sold. The ones that keep us locked for the felony time, or the ones that fund the dollars for the BLM sign. Y'all ain't really doing what y'all supposed to. Y'all just follow suit like the rest do. Oh, yeah. We love the lows but hate the highs. Is the other side of the sun. With all this glow, it's hard to hide. It's bright. We love the lows but hate the highs. Is the other side of the sun. With all this dark, it's hard to find. It's bright.